Here we go. Okay, James.
Welcome. My name is James O'Hagan. I am the Director of Digital and Virtual Learning for the Racine Unified School District, and I'm here to talk to you and educate you about our virtual learning program that we have in districts. The first thing about virtual learning and what we do here in RUSD is that we make virtual personal. That's probably one of the hardest things. And think back to when you were in COVID and think back to when your kids were at home. You noticed right away that learning could have become very robotic. It could have felt very disconnected. What we're trying to do in our virtual learning program is we're actually trying to make virtual much more of a personal experience for you as a family, not just the student, but you as the parent and your support and extended family as well, too. And really, when I talk about that, there's 4 parts to success in our program. And there's really 4 big groups of people with which our students work. First of all, we do have our students grades K through 12. Unfortunately, we do not provide virtual instruction for pre-K students, but for students K through 12, they're our first major part because they are the stakeholder, the main stakeholder. They are the one who is obviously we want to educate. The other group that is involved in our virtual program are our teachers. Our teachers, again, are covering grades K through 12. In our elementary program, we have dedicated teachers specifically for elementary students. We also have teachers who cover the specials like art, music, and PE. And then we also have similar setup at the middle school and the high school where we have dedicated teachers, full-time teachers in core subject areas such as math, reading, social studies, and science. We also have a number of other teachers throughout the district who do this as extra duty. So they also are working with your students as well throughout the day. One of the other key parts to our program is mentorship. Now, this is something that you might not see in a traditional school environment, but because learning in a virtual environment is so radically different for a lot of families, we make sure to provide some level of mentorship with a teacher whose sole job it is to find or help students who need additional supports, and not only help students, but also help families, because we know that virtual learning creates a new paradigm for a lot of families. We realize that when the home becomes the classroom, there can be additional stresses, things that maybe never came up before. So we provide these additional teaching supports, again, not just for students and not just to help out the kids who are struggling, but also to help out families who may be struggling in a virtual environment. We find that our greatest success comes when we include mentorship in our program. And the other part of success in this is going to be parents. We rely on parents so much, not so much for the teaching aspect of things, because we do have teachers, we have mentors, but we need there to be a structure in the home as best as can possibly be. We've had students who worked with us from, giant homes to apartments. We've had students who work with us from hotel rooms and even other parts of the world. But parents are a key support in all this. When we think about virtual learning, it's not going to be successful if it's just expecting that you can leave your child in front of a computer for 6 hours a day. That's going to create a lot of times a lot of issues with students. Sometimes there's disconnections, students feeling kind of left out. So parent support is really important to making sure that we build a good structure in the home and that we are here to support you in helping you to build that structure in the home. And when I talk about the types of learning that we offer, there's really 2 kinds. Now, I want to draw attention to the left side of this box if you're watching this, because remote instruction is what RUSD did when the pandemic first hit. So if you remember back, there were teachers who were lecturing students expecting to go to a class at a specific time of day, whether it's through a Google Classroom or it was through Zoom. They would go there and they would get lectured or work with a teacher like they would have in a traditional school. The virtual learning program does not operate that way. Now, our virtual program has actually been a part of the school district now for over 10 years. We have a lot of practice with regards to how do you teach in a virtual environment, but we decided that we were going to stick to our program structure of providing opportunities for students to work at their own pace, to have opportunities to meet with their teachers when they could, as needed throughout the day, to give families some flexibility as to the instruction that their children would get. We've had families who've decided that staying even in this country during the pandemic was not sustainable for them. They decided to take their families either out of Racine, across the United States, or even across the world. We allow families to work with us in a variety of different ways, and we don't try to pigeonhole it only between the hours of 8 and 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Again, the virtual learning program is much more fluid, and it provides much more opportunity for students to get remedial help, but also to accelerate their learning as well too. And that goes to the type of learning that we do. Now, there's two terms up here, and before the pandemic, a lot of people probably didn't understand what these terms were. I know there were even teachers who didn't understand these terms, but we talk about synchronous and asynchronous learning. Synchronous learning is the type of learning where a student has to be sitting at a seat at a specific time in order to get instruction. That is synchronous, where the teacher is working directly with the student one-on-one. In our virtual program, we don't primarily use synchronous learning as a way to educate our students. We do, for example, though, in the morning have, for elementary students, we have our morning meetings where elementary students come together. They have time one-on-one as a big class. Well, I shouldn't say one-on-one. They have time as a class with their teacher to kind of start their day, to kind of give them some direction, a little more structure and focus, because we know our younger students in particular need that kind of structure and focus to help them get started with their day. But primarily our learning that takes place throughout the day is asynchronous, where students are working a lot on their own. You may have one student at one home who's working on mathematics, and you may have a student in another home who is working on English. You may have two students both in the same grade level with the same teacher who is working at different parts in their math studies. So you might have one child who's working on addition and subtraction on one day, and on that same day you might have a student who may be either accelerated or a little behind, who needs additional help with addition and subtraction, or maybe has moved ahead and is working on multiplication and division, as an example. We don't hold students down to everybody following the same pace. So that's what an asynchronous learning program is, and that's the program that we have. And I want to take some opportunity to show you really quickly a couple of short videos. These are about some of our families, two of our families in particular. One is a high school student who just graduated. And then the second video I'm going to show you is a family who has their children in middle and elementary at the time.
My daughter, Willow, is a graduate of RUSD Virtual Learning. She started in her junior year, the start of her junior year, and she enjoyed it.
I came over here from St. Cat's because I was having health issues, so being a part of virtual learning allowed me to continue my schooling and also focus on my health.
She always wanted to go to an online school, but I wasn't comfortable with sending her to an online school. I just envisioned her being in a room, working at her own pace, maybe not, but not having the structure.
Just the whole virtual aspect, I was able to work on my schoolwork when I wanted to during nighttime. It's not like regular school where you have a certain schedule, you have to be there on time.
Her self-esteem picked up. She got a lot more confident. She was able to work at her own pace, and she was able to do things that made her happy and made her feel good. And she was able to focus on her health as well.
I feel like through this path, I was more successful in school. Being around so many people was a little bit distracting to me. It was a little bit stressful. So being able to focus just on my schoolwork was great.
I wasn't familiar that everything was certified. She had the AP classes. She would go through graduation.
I also got to go to prom. Being a part of virtual learning, you're still a part of Racine Unified. So I got to attend prom, and I actually made the front cover of the newspaper. For all the parents out there and the kids wondering if virtual learning is a great fit, don't be scared. Make sure that you're taking into consideration how you learn best. And if you think virtual is a good option, then go for it, try it out, and it might work out great, just like it did for me.
But I think some people should consider it as a permanent option for their children. Of course, it depends on the child. And if your child has that structure, if they can stay focused, and if they have other endeavors that they're interested in. If they're interested in acting, if they're interested in modeling, if they're interested in having a job during the school day, virtual should definitely be an option.
I didn't miss out on anything. I really love virtual learning, and I was able, to be successful and still take part in all those little, small, great memories.
And that's Willow, one of our students. She is now a freshman at Mount Mary up in Milwaukee. So Willow had a tremendous amount of success, but it wasn't always linear. But again, it was meeting her where she was and giving her the supports that she needed to complete her high school education on time and to get her to college. We have some other students, another quick video to show you. One is, again, an elementary student, one is a middle school student, but from one family.
My daughter, Willow,
that's the wrong video.
Is a graduate of Racine Virtual Learning.
Well, I didn't make the right video, so we will go on, but I will tell you that elementary and middle school students who were a part of virtual learning last year, they're still part of our virtual learning program this year. In fact, their older sister who attends Case High School is now part-time in our virtual program. So virtual learning doesn't even have to be a full-time thing. You can work with your school if you choose to find out how can virtual even be a part of my child's regular day of education. I have some students who, they brought up jobs. I have some students whose family job situation requires them, because of transportation issues, to maybe work a half day in the classroom, but then they're maybe doing virtual in the afternoon. There's a variety of different ways, depending on the need and the compelling need around that. There's a variety of ways that we can use virtual learning in our school. It just doesn't have to be fully full-time all the time. Oh, here's the correct video. There we go.
Charlie is 8th grade through Racine Alternative, and David is going into 6th grade with Racine Alternative.
It's been amazing from the start.
When Charlie started in virtual, I noticed right away he really excelled in a lot of the academics, and he was communicating a lot better with his teachers. There wasn't that barrier of other kids bullying. Charlie is also LGBTQ, so this gave us a really safe place for his transition at home. I mean, it's been like night and day for him.
I don't have to worry about the pace at which the teacher is teaching or the pace at which all the other kids are learning.
Okay, so I'm seeing a huge confidence boost. The grades went way up. There's actually an interest in learning. David was actually struggling a lot in school as well, to the point where just a stereotypical classroom environment is not working for him. In the virtual program is the first time that David's really been able to actually focus on school at all, really, because he can get up and wiggle.
It was a great experience because I was able to pace myself around the classroom. I felt more supported about doing my work, and I was more excited about doing my work.
We still had actual meetings with teachers, not in person, but over Zoom or something.
So not only did they get teacher interaction, they got friend interaction too, and they were able to build a social circle that way. So I feel like really above and beyond, it was more connected than it has been in the past in our experience.
It's not just all emails.
It was really great for me to meet people and then be able to get to meet them in real life when we did meetups and stuff like that.
My younger two will actually be continuing at Racine Alternative because this was not an entirely pandemic-related decision for us, but then we saw how well it worked. We've decided to keep going with it. We didn't really know what to expect going in. And so I wish I would have known how open and welcoming it was.
All right. And I know that brings us to some common questions that a lot of people have about the virtual learning program. And so I'm going to kind of go through these really quickly, but All these questions can be found and answered, not just if I miss something, you can always go to our website, which you can access through rusd.org, to get access to these answers to these questions as well too. So first off, how do the classes work? Again, all of our classes are asynchronous, again, meaning that you can take a class, work at your own pace, get additional help where you need help, work ahead if you feel comfortable working ahead. There is no bell schedule throughout the day. I always tell the high school students, though, when it comes to your classes, make sure that, I know it's a tendency, especially with the high school students, to want to sleep in. You can sleep in all you like, just to make sure that you have a schedule for your day. Again, that goes back to how parents can be supportive. It's not usually asked of parents to say, hey, what's the bell schedule in your house? When is your child working on their instruction? But it is an important question to ask, and it is something that we need to make sure that we have parents engaged in this whole thing, because again, you're not sending your child out the door. Things are taking place inside the home. So we want to make sure, again, that when we have our classes, that again, students do have a schedule. It doesn't have to follow a traditional bell schedule, and that again, students can work at their own pace through their courses. Classes are graded much the same as they are in RUSD. We use standards, we use letter grades right now. So those are, our classes are graded no differently. The big difference, though, I would say with regards to the virtual program when it comes to class grades, is that the expectation is that every student turns in every assignment. We don't let students just float by, and we want students to work up to a C-level average, at least on their assignments. I know that there's sometimes students will want to just go to school, put their head down, not want to necessarily engage in the lesson that day, or they might skip an assignment, just take the F and not turn it in. We want to make sure that our students are fully engaged, meaning that they are turning in all their work and that they do have multiple opportunities to work to a C level. We call that a competency-based model in the sense of how we grade things. So we don't just take an F and say, sorry, move on, you've left out. Again, we want to make sure that our students are actually coming away with full understanding. Are there quarters, semesters, trimesters? We work on the semester system, just like our USD, though I will say as a caveat, we do have some students who, especially at the high school level, not so much at the elementary or even at the middle school level, but I have some high school students who prefer, rather than taking 8 classes at one time, they prefer to take 4 classes at one time, but work on them faster. So instead of working on them throughout an entire semester, they will take a quarter and focus on doing just 4 classes at one time. And then on the other quarter, they'll focus on the other 4 classes. So there's a variety of ways that we can divvy this up. But again, most of our classes are taken in a semester level. When do my classes start? This is a question I get a lot, especially at the start of this school year when we were struggling to enroll all the students that we had come in. We went from approximately 160 students last year to 550 at the start of this school year. And you can imagine with the staffing for only about 150 kids, 160 kids, that going to 550 was a bit of a struggle. But classes start when you start, when your child starts. So let's say at the start of this school year was September 1st. Let's say a family wasn't able to get their orientation or their enrollment or their changeover completed until September 7th. Guess what? When their student was placed into their courses, that was the first day for their courses. They had not missed 6 days previous. They started their classes the day they got enrolled into the class. The first day is the first day you enter class. And again, that works because we are working on things from an asynchronous model, meaning again, students are working at their own pace, but that also means that they can start their classes at their own time as well, too. Do I have to provide my own computer? You do not. RUSD provides a Chromebook to every student in grades 3 through 12, and they provide tablets to all children in grades K through 2. So you do not have to provide your own computer. What if I need internet access? That's a great question. And I know a lot of people during the pandemic may have realized that they needed to get internet access into the home. And I realize that there's different tiers of service around the community. But if you need internet service, that is expected to be provided by you in some way. There are programs through AT&T and Spectrum to assist if you're struggling with how to pay for this, or your family is on services or support services, there's opportunities to get a discounted internet rate through Spectrum and AT&T. And if you go to our website, we actually have information listed in our facts section about how to get access or how to apply for those services for your family. But we realize again that if you need internet service and you're really still struggling for how to access it or how to get it, please just call our office. I used to be a tech director for many years. I am very well versed in speaking to internet companies and helping families to get their internet service working right. Just give us a call and we're there to help you. And this was something that I loved. And it's a question I probably get asked the most by especially our juniors and seniors. Am I still allowed to attend school events such as prom, homecoming, dances, and sporting events? Absolutely. All virtual students are, even though they're part of RUSD Virtual Learning, because they are part of this district as a whole, they are still able to attend all school events that they would have at their traditional school. Plus, they can still even participate in their school activities. So if they wanted to be a part of, say, a football team or do a play or be even I have a couple of students who are still wanting to be a part of their band program at their face-to-face school. They can still do that. It's a matter of just asking, and we can arrange for most anything to be done and are allowed as far as extracurricular activities or any kind of offsite or building events. Do I still need to, and when you say do I, do students still need to take the ACT, MAP, or other exams required by the Racine Unified School District? That may include the I-Forward exam, the Access exam. These things, yes, we still have an expectation that our students do take these tests. Unfortunately, we can't allow you to take them from home, but typically what we do is we have dates and times for our students to come into the Community Pathways Center to take an exam in a proctored environment. And now I see that there are a couple of people who are on the Zoom call right now. This is an opportunity for any additional questions if there may be any.
Can you explain the role of the mentor as far as, if we could explain it for elementary school students?
Sure.
What that looks like for middle and high school?
So the mentor at the elementary level versus the middle and the high school mentor, they actually operate in a very similar way. It's just they're working with very different student populations. Typically, the elementary mentor, though, is going to be somebody who's working right now mostly with families who are maybe feeling disengaged from the virtual learning process. We do have some families who we reach out to make sure that the virtual learning program is working for them. But we know that in some cases, some families maybe were not prepared for virtual learning appropriately, or something has come up. We realized that even in a few weeks ago, we had a family who was being evicted from their home and had kind of just fallen off. And it took a team of us, including the mentor, who recognized this first off, that there was something going on in the home, and that we were able to then help them to provide support services for the family as they started to get into transition with their move. It is the mentor part of the program is vital, again, not just for student success support, but also for parent success support. So if a parent is struggling with how do I, create a schedule in the home? How do I support my child in the virtual learning environment? How do I, where can I get additional services or extra support from my family at this time? The mentor is really the person, especially at the elementary level, who's a good first point of contact outside of the traditional teacher to provide those services. It's really, the mentorship isn't just, like I said, just for students. This is to help a whole family to realize that learning is going to be happening in their home and to support them in that time of learning.
James, we do have a question in the chat, and it is, how does a student get help if they are struggling? Sure, I see the question.
Again, we have every student does have a teacher, and this isn't a computer that is just grading assignments behind the scenes. Every student has a teacher who is certified by the state of Wisconsin, is an RUSD hired teacher. And if a student is struggling, their classroom teacher, their online teacher is going to be their main first line of support. We also have our mentor teachers who can help, because sometimes students don't necessarily always feel comfortable or trust their teachers right away, even though the teacher is grading their work and returning their work. It is in a virtual environment much more important for teachers and students to be more engaged with communication, because again, things are not happening necessarily in the same classroom at the same time. So if a student is struggling and not reaching out to the teacher, hopefully the mentor teacher can be of additional assistance. But we also have a tutoring program called Tutor Me through the school district that provides additional tutoring services for our students. We also do have students with IEPs. So we do have special education teachers on staff as well, who work with students either in small groups or direct one-on-one should they need additional help. Ms. Howell, do you have any questions? Is there something maybe you heard that I may have said that surprised you?
You know, I was just actually listening and really thinking, James, when we think about middle school students and high school students, do they have different teachers per subject area?
Yes, we have a couple of teachers who at the middle and high school level who can go into other subject areas as well because of licensing. But again, the licenses at the middle and the high school level are usually more specific. So I have social studies teachers, English teachers, math teachers, science teachers, and then our fine arts and specials teachers as well. But usually those teachers, again, are content focused. I can only think of a couple of teachers on my one hand who can teach, for example, English and social studies, or actually the only ones I can think of are English and social studies. So yeah, we have some teachers who do that. We have some students who maybe get two of the same teacher for different subjects throughout because of just how they're scheduled. So that happens sometimes too.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. And of course, if you're watching this, you can see down at the bottom my name, my email address is there as well too, as well as my office phone number. If you have any questions, you may feel free to follow up with us. Now, again, we've had a huge influx of people, and we always try to answer every call, but we don't always get to every call in a timely manner. But please, email is probably the most reliable way to get hold of us, but you can also call 262-664-8730.
Awesome.
And if there are no other questions, that's it.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, James. And if you do have any other questions, please feel free to connect with James O'Hagan at the contact information that was on the screen. And I do see that we just had someone else to join us. However, please know that this has been recorded, and so you will be able to access this from the website. This week it will go up on the website. So if you did happen to connect later on or miss this session, please know that you will be able to get the recording. Okay.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Howell. Thank you so much for having me a part of this. And I'm always willing to come back. And if we ever get back face to face, I'm happy to. Sometimes people, like to ask questions better face to face as well. I'm always available.
Absolutely. We appreciate it, James. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.